Jordan, do you have an opinion on meat tornado burritos or anything of the sort? Oh, I think you're muted or something. We can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, I was just agreeing with you. No, I was agreeing with Ron. The meat tornado burrito sounds amazing.
It's bridging cultures. I always think that that's big.
hmm
That's what we're doing here.
I have a topic. How do you guys feel about preheating your oven? Do you do it or do
I
you not do it?
didn't know that was a controversy.
I
I
don't
don't.
preheat it.
You don't preheat it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of preheating. I remember in high school, we used to be able to leave campus for lunch. So I would leave and cook a frozen pizza, and I didn't have much time because you have an hour for lunch, and in high school you can't be late for class. So I wouldn't preheat my oven, and it would often come out burnt on the bottom and uncooked on the top. So
Mm.
I want to hear about your not preheating exploits. I'm not that much of a rebel. I do listen to a lot of punk rock, but I still preheat my oven.
I don't know. I just always found that I'm waiting an extra 10-ish minutes when I can just add an extra 5 or 6 to whatever I'm baking, and it seems to turn out just fine. I Big oven, man. Eh.
well, Jordan, tying it back to our original discussion, have you heard of air fryers?
Oh yeah, I'm a big air fryer guy.
You don't need to preheat them.
No, not no.
Big oven is a wild thing to say.
Yeah, I can't remember what podcast or group I was listening to this that brought that topic up, but it stuck with me, and that was many years ago. What are they trying to hide? What don't they want you to know about not preheating your oven?
All right, I think I need to stop this recording so that we can record it properly, or someone's recording.
My dogs are competing for trying to eat each other's food, but it's the same food. They just want each other's. A little bit of that going on. Are we in the Rocket Man portion of the podcast, Chris? We're not talking about preheating ovens anymore. We're transitioning. All right, we do have some people starting to join now. So for the handful of you that were here for the pre-show, where we discussed preheating ovens, air fryers, all sorts of controversial things, that's a great opportunity for us just to warm up our voices before we get into the actual Launchpad presentation. We'll be starting in a couple minutes here. As you guys know, we keep it loose. We'll probably get started 2 or 3 minutes into the hour just for people who are on back-to-backs to have time to get in here, but we're already seeing a pretty good assortment. So yeah, thanks for coming. We'll get started in earnest here in a couple minutes. We've got a new presenter this month, which is always exciting. More on that here soon. Jeff, are you doing the Launchpad times this month?
Yeah, the gravity times. Yeah, I've got that.
Gravity times? Yeah, beautiful. Mhm. All right, we got a bunch of people joining now, which is great. Yeah, we'll still take another minute or two before we get started. Just to round out our previous conversation that we were having, uh, it came to the room's attention that I used to think that air fryers used oil to like fry the air around a thing, and so I never used them. I didn't know that they were tiny convection ovens. Show of hands, did anybody else have confusions about how air fryers actually work, or is that just an Eric thing? I admit, what do we call this, Chris? An interested silence?
Yeah. And I think we call it a pickle fact, Eric, which is another term that Eric coined because growing up, he thought pickles were, well, he learned at one point that pickles were just cucumbers that were pickled.
Yeah, I was well into high school before I actually learned what a pickle was. I was 16 or 17 when I discovered that pickles are created from cucumbers and not their own thing. And so since then, I call anything that seemingly the rest of the world knows that you don't know, I call that a pickle fact. And I do believe that we all have our own pickle facts. Mine just unfortunately was about pickles and apparently air fryers.
Yeah, it's mostly food related, I think, Eric. Whereas mine usually has to do something with things socially related.
So now that you know, did you have an air fryer?
Yeah, well, that's where I wanted nothing to do with air fryers, and then someone introduced air fryers into my life, and now I'm like, this is one of the best things I've ever owned, one of the best kitchen appliances.
Oh yeah, I love it. Speaking of the oil though, for certain things, like if you're making like home cut, like on your own fries, it does make sense to put a little bit of oil on them, just a tiny bit, because that helps get them even more crispy.
Okay, see that? Do you just pour that right into the
Just
on
a
top?
just a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
It'll run down all by itself, but it works pretty well.
Well, how about them apples?
Pretty nice.
All right, we are 2 minutes in. It is a good of time as any to go ahead and get started. I worry about the directions that I could go if given too long of a leash here.
Oh
So
yeah,
with
I
that said,
will. Yeah.
welcome to Launchpad, the Jamf admin meetup hosted by Rocket Man. This is February's Launchpad edition. Thank you all for coming. Super excited to have you here. I think I see some new names out there. We've started recently getting people joining the Launchpad meetup from kind of all corners of the internet, which is really exciting. I know traditionally we've done our post on Jamf Nation is kind of where we started, and then I built an email list and we get people signing up for that. And we're starting to get people coming in from Reddit. We're getting people in from LinkedIn. The exciting part about that is in theory, everyone joining this is at least working with Jamf or working on Macs in an enterprise environment. And the more people we get in this room is just more expertise. We try to be right about most things that we talk about, but we're definitely not right about everything. So just the more expertise that we get, I think the better. So if this is your first launch pad or one of your first launch pads, regardless of where you came from, we're happy to have you here. Thanks for joining. Our format for Launchpad typically follows the same format. We try to keep it tight to an hour, but with that said, as you've seen so far, we want to keep that hour kind of loose. We can talk about anything and everything under the sun, typically Jamf related, but all the way up to and including air fryers and pickles. Typically, our agenda, we'll do a couple minutes just right out of the gates, small talking, giving people a chance to get coffees and waters and whatnot, especially if you're coming off a back to back. Then we'll get into the gravity times where your Apple news and rumors are down to earth. Basically, we read patch notes and talk about that. And then we'll do feature requests, where if you have a feature request somewhere on Jamp Nation, this is a good format to be able to submit those to the group. If you're really passionate about it, we can talk about it for a couple minutes, or you can kind of do a sales pitch. But mostly, we have the opportunity to get a couple hundred votes sometimes on some of these feature requests that we all want to see. And then following the Gravity Times portion, we go into the keynote presentation. This month, we're lucky enough to have Jordan Bram from West Virginia University. We will get to that and do a formal introduction when it's Jordan's time to shine. But we have a new presenter this month, which is always exciting. So with that said, I think let's go ahead and get into the Gravity Times, which will be presented by Rocket Man engineer Jeff Root.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. So, as Eric mentioned, this is kind of where we go over the Apple and Jamf news. Uh, so, getting right into it. Apple updates. Nothing new since our last Launchpad, except for the release of the 26 OS series release candidates. So if you are interested in getting your hands on those, they were released 2 days ago. So go check them out. Since we're getting a release candidate, it's not too long until the .3 releases are going to be coming out. Yeah. All right. There has been a Jamf update since our last Launchpad. 11.24 came out, as well as a hotfix. That hotfix fixed two product issues. One was a nondescript security vulnerability, and the other was a problem with special characters in package names. Couple of highlights from the most recent release. We're actually a little bit late on this one. The compliance benchmarks. We now have all of the benchmarks from the macOS Security Compliance Project, and you can see all of those in there now. Those have been there since December 4th, but we hadn't covered them here yet, so I wanted to bring them up. We also have something new in 11.24, Jamf Protect registration. We now have an automatic option to register that tenant in your Jamf Cloud instance. You do have to have Jamf Cloud. If you're on-prem, it's still a manual registration process to connect those two things. But if you go into your Jamf Pro settings, you can set that up as automatic now. One restriction that we wanted to bring up that we think is really cool, we have a way to bypass camera restrictions on mobile devices now on iOS 13 and higher, or 26 and higher, excuse me. If you have something like Zoom and you want it to be the only iOS app that uses the camera, you can now bypass your camera restrictions for specific bundle IDs. So that's also very cool. One thing that isn't in here that probably doesn't affect most people that I just wanted to bring up is that new Jamf Pro cloud instances that are spun up now automatically integrate with Jamf account using OIDC. Just something cool if you spin up a new Jamf Pro instance at some point in the future. All right. That's certainly not everything from the 11.24 release. You can see all of those in the enhancements page in the Jamf Pro documentation. But we're going to move on. As always, we want everyone here, if they have a feature request they're passionate about, that you want to get eyes on or votes for, go ahead and put them in the Zoom chat so that your fellow Mac admins can see them and vote them up. And that's all I've got. Eric?
Sweet. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward there. Does anybody have any feature requests? Normally, this is one of those things that will like breeze past. And then as we move on to the next topic, we get like 8 that hit the chat. So I'm going to take a deep breath and pause for a moment.
I was just now looking for one where someone is wanting to be able to, build smart groups, knowing what computers have got what blueprints installed. Because I just now started using them, and I was like, wait a minute, I have no way of knowing what blueprints are installed on computers. I've got the API code to actually make that. Like, if I can check them on an individual basis, but I don't know how. Otherwise, I don't know how else to do that. But so otherwise, I'd be able to give you guys a feature request to vote up. I can't find one.
All right. I think deep breath has been had. Well, let's go ahead and move into the keynote presentation. Jordan, I'll do a brief intro for you while you get your screen sharing set up and making sure that all that is working. Jordan, he's been at West Virginia University for a little over 5 years. He's been running the Mac OS administration over there. I think any of you, I know we have a lot of education on this call. We've worked with a number of both K-12 and higher education, and for the enterprise companies out there that think you're very sophisticated and are doing cool things, it doesn't get more complicated than working in education. I think we've learned that. So super excited to have Jordan on the call today. Jordan will be discussing automating device assignments in Apple Business and School Manager. And Jordan, with that, it looks like you are screen sharing and ready to go. I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So let me introduce myself again. Eric hit all my keynotes pretty much on the introduction. But I'm Jordan Bram. I'm a client platform engineer at West Virginia University. Like Eric said, I've been in this role for a little over 6 years. And my primary responsibility here on the endpoint management team is the primary for our Jamf Pro and Apple fleet. We're not a small fleet, but we're also not a huge fleet. We're about 6,000 devices strong, a mix of Mac and iOS and iPad OS devices. In the bottom left, I have my LinkedIn and my Slack, so feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk about anything I've talked about today. But before we get into all the fun stuff, I want to give a little agenda. I'll start by showing you what our process looked like before our automation workflow. Then I'll talk a little bit about how the AXM, I apologize going forward. I'm going to say Apple School Manager a lot because that's what we use, but you can apply the same principles to Apple Business Manager. But the new API enables some pretty cool stuff for automation needs. And finally, I'll tie together like what we learned from the
Can we all see the presentation? I just want to double check. I know there's some spotlighting. Got the slide. Okay, beautiful. Thank you guys for letting us know that.
You guys are good because I got a Zoom quit unexpectedly thing popping up.
You're a little frozen. Yeah, I'll probably just have to reset. Hey, Jordan.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
We can hear you now.
Oh man, this is so much fun. Great first impressions.
Oh, you should have saw the
You could
issues we had last month. You're doing great.
All right. So how far did I go before you guys lost me?
I don't think we lost your voiceover. I think we saw you just drop.
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
had some
so
technical difficulties on our end, but everything's good to go now.
yeah, that was weird. Okay, cool. I'll pick up on the agenda slide. So, like I said, I'll be interchanging ASM, API, and AXM, ABM. Take it with a grain of salt. And then once I get through what the API opened up for us or for us as admins, I will walk through on how I ended up automating our workflow that was semi-automated or pretty hands-on in some cases. So device assignment at scale is hard, especially when you're in a complicated environment. So what that means and what kind of environment that I'm working with that I think might some other institutions and other admins might relate to is IT support at West Virginia University is a decentralized IT structure. So what that looks like is the IT support is made up of IT units for each college under the university's umbrella. So Central ITS manages infrastructure such as Jamf Pro and the Apple School Manager instance for the university. And inside that, each college IT unit gets their own Jamf Pro site to manage their devices. With that being said, at WVU, we currently have more than 17 JamPro sites. So what that means is in Apple School Manager, we have more than 17 plus server locations. And the reason why we do it that way is so each college IT unit can get their own site, which means that they can do automated device enrollment. They can also manage their devices the way that they want to an extent, following the university's policies. But that's all great until we realize that there's thousands of devices and somebody needs to be in there making sure that the devices fall into the correct JamPro site. Which leads to our initial workflow. I kind of streamlined or gave a little streamlined overview of how that workflow worked and looked like. But I want to take a little second, get a drink, because I'm starting to feel like I'm talking a little too fast.
How's pacing for everyone? I think you're doing great. Usually this room can keep up at a pretty good rate. So I appreciate you being cognizant of that, though.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, if at any point you guys have a question, I want to keep this little conversational as well. So please interrupt me. Eric, if you see any questions come in, just for real, just come in and ask them.
We'll be looking, but yeah, you're doing great so far.
All right. So before we get into the actual automated portion of device assignments, I wanted to lay out how we used to do device assignments for the organization. The flow that you're looking at isn't fully automated. It still requires some hands-on by a technician at some point, which might be what you're looking for if you don't have anything like this set up. So at West Virginia University, when we initially got our Apple School Manager instance configured for automated device enrollment, we were able to work with our procurement team at WVU and our Apple contacts to work on a Apple storefront that sits behind a punch-out system that allows users at WVU and staff to purchase devices directly from Apple through an Apple or through a WVU approved punch-out storefront. The thing that we worked with our procurement team on, which I think is very nifty, is whenever a purchase is completed through the storefront, a shared inbox or an email is also sent or CC'd on the shipment notification emails to a shared inbox or an email. So in this case, a user purchases sorry about that. A user purchases through the Apple Punch-Out. Apple ships the device. Apple notifies the user, and also the Punch-Out system CCs our shared inbox email on it. So at least somebody is getting alerted at WVU that a new device is coming and is incoming onto our instance. So the kind of automated portion of this, which is what we use for the last, I'd say about 6-7 years now, is when an email came into that shared inbox, we had a specific filter and a rule to generate a ticket. So when an email came in, it sent it off to whatever our ITSM system is. Right now we're using Jira. So shipment comes in, Jira ticket gets generated, the ticket gets dropped into the service desk queue. A service desk technician would then look at that ticket, and what the information in that ticket is literally just the shipment order. So we can see who purchased the device, how many devices there are, the Apple's order number, which is very important for when you're searching in Apple School Manager. And then once all that information is found, the technician will then look for that user, find out who their desk side support or their support unit is, and then that's how they will determine which site in Apple School Manager they will assign that new device that just popped up or populated in our Apple School Manager instance. So it doesn't sound too bad. It's a pretty straightforward workflow. Order comes in, ticket gets generated, technician finds the order in Apple School Manager, and they also tie a user to that. And then they decide where they or the device. But again, that's like anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes per device or per order. And when you're seeing upwards up to about 20 to 30 orders a month, like that's a good bit of time taken up by manual assignments. But this is the workflow that we were using for many years before the API came out, and it's worked very well. Before one last thing before we get into the actual API portion of this is I wanted to talk about the default assignment location in Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager. This is going to play an important role in our automation workflow later on. Using a default assignment location can really make sure the devices that are purchased and added to your instance that they still have a place to fall into some sort of management. And what I mean by that is like sometimes orders that come in are split, and sometimes the technician might miss an order or miss a couple computers in an order because 9 out of 10 devices got added to Apple instance or to your Apple School Manager instance the day that it shipped. And then a couple days later, that extra one would fall in. But by the time that extra one would fall in, that, there's just a spare device unassigned, not really, nobody knows where it is. It's in no man's land. That's where the default assignment location comes in handy. So whenever a device, if you have this set up, when a device is added to your instance, the device automatically gets assigned to the specific MDM location or server that you have set in your instance. And what that means, and which that enables you to do, is kind of set up a Jamf Pro site. In our case, we set up a Jamf Pro site that any new device that gets added to our Apple School Manager instance that is unassigned gets assigned here. And if they end up not being assigned to the proper site, let's say a device was missed, got added to our instance, and then the user got their hands on it before their desk side support could find it and realize that it wasn't assigned. The user would go through out of box experience, and on a Mac, it would like kind of lock down. We'd use something similar to like the EP notify, and it would just lock the device and pop up an error or a message saying, hey, something went wrong with your device enrollment. Please contact the service desk with this number and error, and here's your serial number. And then when they would call, the service desk would find their device, assign it to the correct site, and then walk the user through on how to re-enroll their Mac. Same concept on iOS and iPad OS is that it would kind of put them into a restricted profile, and it'd have a background that has all the same information, call the service desk, and then the service desk will walk them through on how all that works. I do recommend people looking into this, especially if you find yourself finding a lot of devices in your Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager instance, but aren't assigned to a site, and they're kind of like just free. They're roaming free. It's a very nifty feature that I'm happy that we're utilizing for this. But with that being said, I want to get into the API and what it enables us to do. So at WWDC 2025, as many of you know, Apple announced the new API for Apple Business and School Manager. This is a huge announcement because it really does enable us to do some cool things that I know a lot of us have been asking for many years. I wanted to really touch on like being able to not have to go into the GUI and be able to automate and autonomously manipulate your instance. It's a very powerful tool, and without this, we wouldn't be able to do some cool workflows like I'm about to show you. And the best thing is they're still developing it. Like every month or every couple months, there's new features, new endpoints added. I think the last month or the last update, they added the ability to pull warranty information, or it might have been 2 updates ago. I haven't seen the latest round yet, if there is any at this time. But what we're focusing on here now is the initial endpoints that we were initially given, which are, it gives us the ability to find devices in our instances through serial number, or yeah, through serial number. And it also gives us the ability to move and manipulate the assigned MDM server of these devices, which is huge, especially when we're thinking about automated device assignments. And I know big, scary workflow. I'm going to leave this up for about 30 seconds ish, just so you can take a look at it. I have a smaller version coming up, but this is also on my LinkedIn if you want a better blown up version. But yeah, I'm just going to catch my breath. And if there's any questions so far, please.
I think you're doing great so far. Pacing feels good. It's a heck of a workflow. You aren't lying with big, scary workflow.
And it looks scary. It's not, I promise. It's genuinely like, it's the same concept here. And what I mean by that is basically we get an email, we get the data, we identify the user, we figure out where it goes, and then we just assign it. Same exact workflow, just minus the technician touching it. It's all done through the automation or through a script, essentially. Before we get into this, I want to put a disclaimer. This is not the only way to do this. This is just the way that I approached it. You don't have to use the same cloud hosting that I did. You don't have to use the same infrastructure choices or do the same infrastructure choices that I did. Do what fits your instant or your environment best. But yeah, so some big benefits of doing it like this. I host this in Azure. I have a couple different things in this workflow, like logic apps, runbooks, storage tables are a big thing that we use on our team internally for reporting and like miscellaneous automations. And you'll see a couple of those collaborations between the other teammates on my team here at WVU that we've been able to curate. Nice thing about this workflow, we can have this run as many times as we want. Granted, we might get hit by API limits and rate limiting by Apple. But we run it hourly on the hour, so we don't get hit by it too much. Only on big orders, when we see huge, like big orders over 100 devices, is typically when we start getting rate limited with this specific workflow. But the best thing is it's reliable. Is like, that's the biggest thing. Like, we can have orders coming in on the weekend. We don't expect somebody on the service desk at 2 a.m. on a Saturday to be assigning devices. This workflow does it. This workflow makes sure, like, if the user gets their device Monday morning at 7 a.m., for some reason they're up that early, they can open that box, open the computer, and it's going to drop into the correct desk side support Jamf site. So,
Jordan, we have a question from Bruce. Just for
okay.
clarity, are you guys using multiple Jamf Pro instances?
No, for this specific, no. We're one instance over. We have about 17 support unit sites and a couple extra like specialized sites that we use. We've thought about it, but single instance seems to work the best right now for our structure.
Cool.
Yeah, so I want to get into the first part, which you might find a little familiar, and it's that email portion of getting those that purchase information. This is the most important part, because without this, we don't have any way of identifying where these devices came from. So a little different, instead of generating a Jira ticket, we have a logic app set up with a trigger searcher or watching an email or an inbox for emails to come in. Because prior to this, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So what that logic app does, it sees that we get an email from Apple, very special, or it's a special filter. And it scrapes it. It scrapes it. We can get things like, let me see. Can you see my laser pointer? Can. So important things that we can get from the order is the order number, That's the most important part, and who purchased it. So in this case, we're specifically looking for the email recipient because it gets sent to the user. The rest of this is just for historical purposes. You don't like if you we don't use any of this extra information in the actual workflow. It's more for being able to look back and like see uh carrier number tracking numbers and stuff like that. But the most important part is the row, or in our case, the row key is for the Apple order number, which we can identify devices with and who purchased it. And once the Logic app finds all that information, scrapes it all, and it puts it in this nice little JSON payload, it throws it into the orders table, storage table. And we'll get back to using this guy in a little bit because this is very nice. The reason why I'm using a storage table instead of just doing one-off triggers is because prior to this automation, we didn't have a backup of Apple orders coming in. We would be relying on years and years of emails and shipment notifications in an inbox, in a shared inbox. And let's be real, it's 2026. Email isn't a backup, right? So this really helps us start building that foundation, that historical data going forward with this. So once we get this purchase information stored, we then find the automation part. Again, another big scary thing, a big scary workflow, but it's the same workflow that we saw before, just kind of bigger so you can see the actual flow. And I'll make sure that we're paying attention to where we are when we walk through it. So on the hour, we have this schedule for hourly. Like I said, you can do this daily, bi-hourly, bi-daily, like whatever you guys want. In a run book, we have a script running, and that script starts out the same every time. It searches at Apple School Manager default assignment location. So any new device that comes in, it just gets thrown in that location in Apple School Manager. If there's no devices in it, cool. It's all good. It quits the script. It stops to run. It'll run the next time on the next hour and just keep on checking. However, if it does find a device in that default server, it gets a list of devices by the serial number, and I'll show you the kind of the endpoints that we're using here. So in the MDM servers endpoint, if you plug in your server assignment or your default server location ID here, you can get a list of devices that are assigned to that location in Apple School Manager. And I have a little script that can output like the serials. This is a serial number. I have it blocked out. I apologize. I should have put like faux data in there. But basically it just gets serial numbers, puts it in a list or an array, and then we process that through. So what we're doing with that serial number, we're hitting this endpoint, and this is the basic endpoint to find information on the actual device. So if you go to the documentation on the actual Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager API for the org devices, and then go to the response, you can see that this response is actually, it has a lot more information than just what I'm showing. But the most important information that we can get for the devices is this order number, right? That way we can start building that connection between what this device is and who owns it or who purchased it. Which is kind of where I'm getting to in this next slide. So whenever we find that order number for from that device, we then go back and look at that storage table with all that purchasing information that we were collecting. So as you can see, this is a screenshot of what that storage table would look like from the GUI. Again, I apologize. I should have populated like a fake one with extra data, but you can see the row key. These are all the Apple order numbers. So in our case, they all start with AA, and then some numbers or an extra letter here and there. And then all the script does when it finds that device's order number, it searches here. If it doesn't have a order in this table, it throws an error and we'll get a bunch of alerts. I'll get into the alerting stuff at the end though. But since anything that goes into the default assignment site in our specific instance is these orders are already processed through the logic app and they're thrown in this table. So whenever we find that device, we find the order, we eventually find out who owns it. That's how we build our initial connection between the device and the user. So the nice thing about keeping this all in Azure in our specific instance is we're using, I can leverage Entra ID to find these users specifically in our identity management system. So the reason why the email recipient is so important is that once I find who purchased it, I can then search Entra, find who that user is, and use another cool piece of technology in Entra that our team is using is admin units. And specifically the admin units for each of our users, or each of our users fall into a specific admin unit based on their department. And a colleague on my team built out a really nice system to start grouping these departments based on admin units into a nice table that allows us to quickly group or figure out who belongs where when it comes to support units. But so far in this workflow, we found the device, we got the Apple order number, we searched the table that we found, we got the email for that order, we searched Entra for the department and admin unit, and now we're going to look for their admin unit, or we're going to look for their support unit inside that table that our team uses for grouping. And basically all that table is department, admin unit, support unit, and a couple extra information or a couple other pieces of data that isn't really important for this workflow. But this is like, again, this is just one way of actually figuring out where people are. There's probably way simpler methods. It's just in our current environment, this is the best way of us figuring it out. And to be able to build that actual connection and link between the device order and a user. So once we find that support unit from that user, or who that user's support unit is, we then go back to the automation and we go to another table looking for the actual server IDs for the Jamf Pro sites that are linked in Apple School Manager. And what I mean by that is each MDM server location has their own server ID. So instead of it all being zeros for this case, it'll have like a big string of numbers. Sorry. And this is just what the table I built looks like. So if their support unit is testing, the device will go to testing unassigned, and the server ID is that. And then that's the ID that the script will throw the device into. If the user belonged under the arts and sciences support group, they'll go to the arts and sciences Jamf Pro site in Jamf, in Apple School Manager, my bad. It's just that initial connection is all we really need to figure out where they actually go. But once we do that, or once that connection is made, we figure out where they need to go. It's as simple as telling or sending a post. Now that I think about it, I don't have the endpoint as an example, but basically all you do is switch the assigned server on the actual device in the Apple School Manager API and change it to the actual server ID. You'll send the post command and it will eventually reassign that device. And that's how we do device assignments here with this workflow. And the nice thing about this is you can have webhooks being sent. We have a lot of webhooks being sent for notifications. For instance, this is one I generated yesterday to make sure I have an example. nice little webhook. Every time a device is assigned, it gets sent off to a team. Doesn't have to be a Teams team webhook. It could be Slack. It could be, heck, you can even have it generate emails and send emails to the support units, IT admins. That I thought that might start looking into that. Actually, that sounds pretty cool. To let them know ahead of time that, hey, there's a device coming in. But basically, I keep an eye on my team, me and myself, or myself and my team, my bad. Keep an eye on this channel, make sure that any alerts come in, that they're all healthy, they're all assigned. And this is also the team's channel that I would also see alerts coming in. I would like to mention that when we initially built this out, or when I initially built this out, I let this run in read-only mode. So for, I don't know, a month, maybe 2 months. And what I mean by that is, instead of actually going through with the device assignment step of the workflow, I would just have it continue on. Also send these Teams notifications out just so we can monitor it and make sure there's no weird edge cases. And let me tell you, at the beginning, there were a lot, especially when you're dealing with tens of thousands of users. There's a couple different email, there's a bunch of different weird stuff that happens at a university. But going through all of that, we eventually put this into production, and I just wanted to explain some of the big impact that this workflow has or how this workflow has impacted West Virginia University. In about 6 months, we've had over 200 orders being processed by this workflow, a little over 350 devices in those 200 orders. I wish I could say 100% accuracy, but I'm thinking back on 1 or 2 machines that slipped through that hit a weird edge case as soon as I pushed it to prod. But 99% accuracy for, and as many 0.9s as you guys want to put on at the end, I promise. Once you get the initial flow going, it's pretty nice and very hands off. And without this amount of orders coming through, that's about 15 plus hours of manually assigning devices being saved in the last 6 months.
Oh gosh, really nice.
Yeah, that it's very, like, I didn't do the math until I started building this slide, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of man hours whenever it comes down to, like, it's it's a manual thing that takes like 2 minutes to do, 5 minutes to do. But that's my last slide of the workflow and the overview. I want to say thank you guys for listening to that. I apologize if I spoke too fast or I breezed over some stuff that you guys might have might have questions for. So if you do, please ask them or shoot me a message after.
Jordan, I think that was great. I think like a lot of us here, you're probably hard on yourself, but you did a great job. Thank you for that. Would you mind going back to the last slide? I think it's we don't always get like such solid KPIs. Do you mind if I take a screenshot of that?
Yeah, sure.
That's impressive. I know with this Jamf stuff, especially myself being on the sales side, it's hard to kind of explain the nuances of how this stuff works and what you get out of it. A lot of it's like Wizard of Oz, magic behind the curtain, just trust the process. So it's really cool to see these like hard KPIs.
For sure. No, yeah, like I said, I wish I could do 100% accuracy, but man, that I still know exactly what edge case that was. And how quickly I fixed it that Saturday morning when I woke up to 100 notifications saying something wasn't assigned correctly.
Yeah, that tracks.
No.
Well, yeah, amazing job. Does anybody have any questions out there?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start off by asking a question, Jordan. I may have missed this throughout the presentation, but I was wondering, so you have one Jamf Pro server, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so what other servers are you assigning this to in this workflow?
Yeah, so basically, in our server, we have the higher, the full Jamf Pro instance. That's typically where my team works. That's where we put the global policies over everything, global configs. And then inside that, we have a Jamf Pro site for each or for each college IT unit that wants to utilize Jamf
Mhm.
Pro and manage their Apple devices. Um, so inside each site, they can build their own pre-stages. So each site gets their own ADE token. So that's how we allow automated device enrollment specifically for each site. So
Mhm. So you're actually using this in one Jamf Pro server, but with multiple ABM
tokens.
integrations?
Yes. Well,
Oh, so you're doing,
it's one instance, it's one Apple School Manager instance, a bunch of tokens inside that Apple School Manager instance. Each token is tied to an individual site in Jamf Pro.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I got you. That's an interesting workflow.
It's I think it's an old school uh way of doing it. Yeah, we have a very old instance, so it's
Mhm.
not common from what I remember. I remember talking about that in my Jam 400 a couple years ago, and they were also asking me the same questions.
Yeah, I mean there's, more than one way to skin a cat, as they say.
Sure, 100%.
But the nice thing about that is you can set up separate pre-stages for each one. I don't think there's another way. You could use the API within Jamf to basically do the same
It
thing, but it's probably
it gets
better to do
messy.
it with, yeah, it's better to do it with Apple Business Manager because you're kind of hitting it at the source rather than having it get
Mhm.
assigned and then trying to move it around. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, no matter how I looked at it before the API, I still needed to touch Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager in some capacity to make it work, right? Like without it, it's going to get real messy to moving stuff between sites. And then what if the device gets
yeah.
wiped and then it falls out of that pre-stage that we moved it to, that kind of deal.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's where the
No,
API
no.
really opens up that door of we can actually automate this.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, with having that many sites, you hit a bunch of pain points with like scoping or sorry, tokens and stuff, the yearly tokens. So like every year when the tokens start expiring, I very quickly choose a day and time. I very quickly download all 17 plus tokens, make sure they're re-uploaded into Jamf,
Hmm.
and make sure that all of that stuff starts flowing well. I'm hoping that in the future the API opens that up for Jamf to automatically renew those tokens at some point. I think that would be really nifty to have. Um, I guess that's more of a feature request on the Apple side than the Jamf side. But
Yeah, I have a feeling Apple probably won't open that up. But
fingers crossed. Well,
yeah,
we
so
said the
we've
same
got,
thing about the API, so who knows?
that's true. We got another question from Brooks. They said maybe I missed getting pulled into the work, but trying to listen, but reading it verbatim. Uh, but the order or sales order information going from ASM going into your purchasing information in Jamf Pro. I didn't understand the question I just read, but it's in the chat.
Let me see if I could find the chat.
Really providing value there, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I think and Bruce is kind of touching on that as well, but it seems like you're able to manage a lot of this purchase order information that other companies are having to collate themselves. Um, so if you can kind of talk about your ease of getting that kind of information, purchase order information, sales order from ASM going into your Jamf Pro.
Yeah, so unfortunately, my information on this specific workflow is a little it's not all there because this was set up before I was a part of the team here at WVU. However, from my understanding, so at WVU we have a storefront that's set up behind a punch out system. And from that storefront and that punch out system, whenever a purchase is completed with collaboration from Apple, uh, a shared inbox email is attached to that order going forward. So that order whenever the order gets shipped, the email gets sent out to the user that purchased it, as well as CCing the shared inbox email to it. So that's how we can leverage things like this logic app that's constantly monitoring that inbox, and then that will eventually scrape it and put that data somewhere. Does that kind of answer your question? Um,
Yes, I'll say so with the interested silence.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's like I said, it's one way of doing it. If you have, yeah, I think it's one of those. I'm fortunate enough that it was set up this way, so I can build off of it, kind of deal.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's pretty
again,
cool.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, I wanted to bring all these different things up because maybe institutions or organizations kind of want to look at, have that kind of inspiration to maybe like build something like that as well, especially on the PO side, because I know that's not very common.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Logic app. Is that kind of like we've used make.com before or Zapier, stuff like that? Is that the similar type of thing?
Yeah. Have you heard of Power Automate for the Microsoft? It's that, but it's the backend side, or it's the coding side, not coding, but like the more infrastructure. That's what builds Power Automate, if I understand that correctly. Somebody in the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't know I just know for this specific instance, it was definitely the best tool to use.
Okay. Brooks added another question to the chat. Basically, is the PO information going directly into the device's Jamf record?
No, but that is possible now that the new order information API endpoint is there. And I've been messing with it, but I'm kind of hoping that Jamf and Apple work together to integrate that. You can pull that warranty information and the PO information directly from Apple School Manager via the API now. However, getting it, you have to get that information from the API and then put that in the Jamf itself, yourself at the moment. It kind of acts like it's, if you know if you've used a GSX connection for a Jamf instance before, it's like the manual version, or it's like the newer version of that, but it seems like it's more on us building that connection.
Yeah, well, Jamf you can update the inventory information with Jamf. You should just be able to, in the same script or whatever that you're doing, be able to do an API call to the computer's inventory record and plop that information in.
Yeah, it adds an extra 2 calls to it, so you definitely might run into API rate limiting.
What is that API rate limit?
They won't tell us. I can't
you
remember.
Just hit it. Yeah,
I saw a presentation from somebody at Apple, and they straight up was like, or they were mentioning is like, no, we won't tell you what that limit is. Like, it was kind of a funny riff that they did. But yeah, like I said, I kind of was I'm working on a little warranty update script kind of workflow like this, where it takes all the devices in Jamf that don't have a warranty, that doesn't have the PO number, that information entered on the inventory record, and then searches Apple School Manager for that and plops it in the Jamf. I'm running into API limits because like I'm trying to do it over my entire instance instead of like very isolated cases. But I normally see a rate limit every, like, if I do more than probably 30 calls a minute, I'd say, which is still a lot.
Okay.
But cool. Awesome, Brooks.
Yeah, Everett has another question. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a real quick question. And it's something I could probably look up myself, but since you've obviously been keeping a closer eye on the API than I have, I was playing with it back in, gosh, I don't know, July, and after I'd first heard that it was available. And I ended up pulling a bunch of information into Power BI just to compare what I had in Apple Business Manager versus what I had in our inventory system versus what Jamf showed for records, just to see how everything lined up, maybe clean up some records that way. I was pretty excited about all the information. I got a lot of good stuff from it, but obviously it was still in its infancy. If you pulled all the device records, you couldn't really get a good take on what had been released from ABM. It would just show you like device record or device assignment unknown. If you went to an individual device and asked it, you could see if it was released or not. But if you just I want to see the status of all devices, you could see where they were assigned, what MDM they were assigned to, but not if they had been released or not. It was just a device status unknown, which could mean a couple of different things. Do you know if that's been updated yet?
I haven't looked. I didn't know that it didn't say released. Actually, I never thought about checking a release device in my testing.
Yeah, I just figured I'd clean up some old like decom machines that maybe were still showing up. But again, it's been since July. I was a little disappointed in that back then, but I figured they'd catch up with it eventually, and maybe they have. But I just figured I'd ask in case you happen to know.
Unfortunately, I don't know that one. I'm definitely going to check that now though.
Thank you. Great presentation, by the way.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we are hitting that window where it is almost at time. Again, Jordan, thank you so much. I think that was a great presentation. You're probably hard on yourself. You crushed it out there, and the chat confirms that. To the rest of the everyone in the crowd with us, thank you so much for attending another Launchpad meetup. Again, we host these on the first Friday of every month, typically. And anyone and everyone's welcome. We keep it loose. Our presenters keep it tight. We have a good time, a lot of good information. So just thank you guys for continuing to show up to this. We'll go ahead and get invites out for the next Launchpad presentation here soon. But just so everyone can mentally mark their calendars, this is where I like to call on a random member of the Rocket Man team to see if they're still paying attention. Are we still looking at March 6th as the next Launchpad meetup? Beautiful.
Yep.
Oh, because February is the only month that makes sense on the calendar. So next Friday is the 6th as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So March 6th is the next meetup, noon Mountain Time. We'll get those invites out here shortly. Other than that, Jordan, great job. Welcome back anytime. How do you feel, Jordan, after getting some chops? Are you going to present at JNUC now?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think I have. I don't know. I'll think about
qualified. I can assure you that if I've presented at JNUC, you are absolutely qualified to present at JNUC. I promise you. So, yeah, great job on that. Anybody else have any last minute questions, comments, concerns before we wrap this thing up?
Everett, I know you had a question in the chat. Did you want to ask that one?
Yeah, so we have the same site structure as you guys do. And one of the things I was looking for was a way to just let site administrators, send out something and grab their own stuff. They'll have order numbers and stuff already. It just keeps them from having to run over into ASM and, do that kind of thing.
I know that I wish I knew the name of the person that was building that ASM or the AXM tool that allows you to search the instance. I don't know if that tool has the capability of assigning devices or not. I know like in our instance, we have to be careful with the permission set or the role set in Apple School Manager. And you can edit those to an extent and then assign, like, I'm sure you know how it works, Everett. I'm not sure how that would work in a. I don't know. I think it's probably best to keep that a little in-house on your side, right? That way people aren't just snagging or moving stuff around without you knowing.
Well, we let them into ASM already anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that there are a lot of other things that the permissions are still not granular enough to be, more comfortable if you could do it as the user. I mean, I could see how you might be able to set up a web interface with login with Apple and grab the IDs and stuff, but I just wondered if you had done anything like that. And follow up. As far as I can tell, there's still no way to manipulate roles in Apple School Manager with the API. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, not that I can see yet. Maybe one day. I know. I mean, even if we were like, those roles are still like not that great. Like, we still can't do very granular role set, and like there's still limits of users per role, right? So
Yeah, our issue is all of the users come in from our Entra default is the student role, and we need them to be staff roles. So that's a real manual thing. I mean, we dropped probably when we did the switch over, we had 11,000 plus users, and we had to just take 4 or 5 people and spend an 8-hour day with all of us just horsing them over. It was not a lot of fun.
yeah, it doesn't sound fun actually. Yeah, unfortunately I don't know of a way to automate that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Good talking to you again.
It's always good to sneak in a question at the 11th hour. Way to get that one over the goal line. Yeah, with that, thanks to everyone. Thank you, Jordan. Jeff, good job. I didn't give you a thumbs up. I think that's your second gravity times. So you're looking like a natural now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll fake my way through anything, man.
Our expert presenter, Jeff, absolutely crushing it.
These people,
Well,
they're funny.
Well, with that, everyone, thank you so much. We'll see you all in about a month. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
And now we see who's AFK. James is trying to put us off his trail. Thanks, everyone. Hey, Jordan, great job, man. Welcome back
I appreciate
anytime.
it. All right. Do you need anything else from me, or am I free to go?
Yeah, you're free to go. We'll post it on YouTube probably on Monday.
Cool, I appreciate it.
We do some editing and whatnot, but we'll make sure that you're like tagged and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, if you guys need anything, let me know.
That sounds good. Great job.
Have a
Take
good one.
care.
See you.